Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us at our closing keynote interview here that will wrap up the content aspect of this online fitness and wellness summit. And then towards the end, we'll also have a short break for networking for those of you that are hardcore and are sticking in to the end. The phrase, the best to last, is often true. And what we've got today is one of the preeminent female thought leaders across the fitness industry globally. Francine Davis is now Chief Strategy Officer at PureGym, and PureGym, of course, have 250 gyms alone in Europe, and now, as of a recent acquisition, another 260 gyms in Europe. So 510 at last count. Francine has been involved in business for over 25 years across various different industries, including retail, consumer, and also investment, and across a number of managerial roles. So it is my absolute pleasure, Francine, to welcome you here to our closing keynote interview. As I did in the opening panel, I'd love just to get a little bit more insight from you on what your last 2 months have been at PureGym. I know coming from the comments there's various words, but if you can just talk me through some of the general sentiment, we'd love to hear that as a starting point.
Well, thank you, Ross, for that introduction. I think it's fair to say the last months have been a massive learning experience for us. As you said, we've got over 500 gyms across the UK and Europe. We had 1.9 million members before we went into this situation. And sort of following government instruction, the first European country, which was Denmark for us, closed down on the 12th of March. And they immediately had to put their 500,000 members into free freeze. 4 days later, the Swiss government closed down Switzerland. And of course, it was then inevitable 10 days later, the UK government said that all gyms had to close. That was 5 p.m. on a Friday evening. By 8 a.m. the next morning, we had closed down our entire sort of 270 gyms in the UK. This was a business that had taken 10 years to build and literally 10 hours to close down. The PureGym business, as the Danish business, is a no contract business. So from that day of close down, we had no revenue whatsoever coming in. And we had a pretty big cash burn per week. That's a pretty scary place to be when you've had a sort of huge successful business going to zero revenue and trying to work out very quickly what you need to do. And look, this has been the same across a number of businesses in the world. But what became very clear to us very quickly is that we had to preserve our cash, preserve our liquidity. And we took actions to do that and successfully sort of halved our weekly cash burn. We stopped all our CapEx spend. We were a fast growing business. We opened 40 gyms last year in the UK. We had plans for sort of over 60 this year, and we had to put a halt on all of that. And we then had to furlough our 6,500 staff, and that's pretty significant. One of the key things you have to do in times like this is keep that communication going, keep that support going. So once we'd taken those mitigation actions, we then turned our attention to how do we continue to engage with our members? And we had a roadmap for our app that was sort of the next 12 months in delivering classes, delivering workouts, along with a lot of sort of bricks and mortar gyms. We had to accelerate that significantly. And we had to turn that plan round in literally sort of 2 to 3 weeks to make sure that our members had something that they could do at home and that we could still engage and talk to them. And then in parallel with that, we set up learning experiences for our colleagues, communication, things like pub quizzes. just to sort of make sure we were all still talking to each other. So I have to say, a pretty significant change. And agility and communication was key and still is key through all of that.
Okay. It's traumatic, it's experiential, as you said before. Rewind only to the very start of this year, Francine, and of course you just inked the final contract for your deal with Fitness World. Looking maybe first at the wider M&A marketplace, we saw a number of deals getting done. Do you think we'll see the same amount of deal flow coming into the industry, perhaps through distress or perhaps through necessity? What do you think is going to be the M&A pipeline or some of the deals transactions coming up in the next 6 to 12 months?
It's a really good question, Ross, because I think everybody is anticipating, deals are going to be done. I think actually that's more likely to be next year than sort of right now. And I think there's three sort of factors that will fuel that. The first is how well capitalized was the business going into this situation. Clearly, if you were over leveraged, if you had poor cash reserve, and if you have no access to funding, then you're going to be in a very difficult position. The second thing is, have you been able to get a revenue stream into your business? So as I just said, we put all our members onto free freeze. There are a lot of businesses across the world that didn't do that because they held 12-month contracts with members. And therefore, they continue to take monthly dues, and they've extended that contract for 2 months towards the end of the member contract. So they've been able to still sort of get cash into the business. That will be a key factor in survival. And I think the third big question, which nobody really knows the answer to yet, is how quickly will business return to the new norm? We've seen varying levels of confidence across the world in returning to gyms. For instance, in the UK, recent surveys indicate that 50% of people are concerned about even leaving their house. The UK has had the 4th highest death rate per sort of head of population in the world. And that leads to lots of concerns in consumers about coming back out and using facilities, including gyms. But then we've seen other areas where by week 3 or 4, footfall has returned to about 80% of what it was prior to this situation. So I think how quickly you can start to get revenues back into your business again will indicate whether you need support or investment. But I think what is really clear is even successful businesses are going to need to look at reflating their balance sheets. And if they need to do that, then that will drive investments, acquisitions, and possibly mergers.
Okay. Obviously, maybe let's go back to your own acquisition of Fitness World. Obviously, you wanted to penetrate into Europe and have a footprint there. What was the drivers, the dynamics behind that particular deal? And how has this crisis, if anything, changed the strategy towards Europe?
Yeah. So Fitness World had a very similar model to us. It's a low-cost gym provider in Denmark, and they had a presence in Switzerland. They owned BaseFit, which is the largest value operator in Switzerland, and a presence in Poland. Fitness World was a hugely successful business in Denmark, 180 gyms, and similar in their model to us in that it was good quality, low cost, no contract fitness. So our main driving force for that acquisition was A, to get a footprint in Europe, B, to get scale, but C, to sort of leverage things like technology, our digital strategy, our online investment across a wider scale. And what that allowed us to do is look at things like margin improvement through initiatives that we've been taking in the UK that we could pass over to Europe, and vice versa. Fitness World has some very successful sort of ancillary revenue lines, which we could optimize in the UK. I think also that there was, in the UK, we have learnt how to very successfully open gyms from 5,000 square foot right up to 26,000 square foot, so 2,600 square meters. And that means we can bring affordable fitness to all sectors of the population, from big cities down to much smaller towns. And that kind of knowledge and learning is something that we could use in Denmark, in Switzerland, and in Poland to accelerate growth in those countries. That hasn't changed, really, in terms of the way we are looking at Europe long term. There will obviously be changes in operating model, but it's still our view that we will leverage our scale to gain growth.
We talked earlier about this new equilibrium that we'll find, Francine, this new norm. People will be more conscious with cash. They will be looking for more solutions that have a technology angle and a technology touch point. This seems to play directly into what PureGym are. It seems to play into what you're offering. Do you foresee, when the market does return, when demand does return, you'll be sitting in an arguably optimistic position to capture more market share?
Yes. On one hand, I think there will be a sort of uncertainty in the market. PureGym was created 10 years ago in a recession. And its aim then was to allow people to access sort of large, well-equipped gyms, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at a low monthly cost with no commitment. The decision was based by the consumer on, do I want to spend $23 on fitness? And that was very different to at the time where people had to sign up for 12-month contracts, and the decision was based on, do I want to spend $600 and commit myself to that? I think in uncertain times, which we are in right now, people are not going to want to make large financial long-term commitments. And therefore, a model that allows people to start today, leave next week, and have a very low sort of commitment in doing that will be a model that has legs in the new world. I think people will just be concerned about the uncertainty economically, and therefore be looking for going into a fitness environment, but not having to commit long term to doing that.
Yeah, we're interested to see how many operators post-COVID actually change what were pretty rigid long-term structures. I'll be interested to see some of the bigger groups as well and how that happens. I'm pretty sure they're going to have huge competition of people like yourselves that are offering more flexible, more accessible, easily cancelable memberships going forward.
Yeah, and I think people, more people will want to undertake some form of fitness, whether that's in a gym or in a park or whatever. People understand that fitness in relation to sort of COVID-19 is of a benefit. Yeah. And so coming out of this, I think people will want to do that more.
Okay. We talked obviously today about digital fitness. I know that you guys have invested heavily in digital fitness, but can you talk us through that digital fitness? And I know it's also digital wellness, which I think people at some operator level think they only have to do the fitness, but I'd love to hear the story about the journey you've taken, what you've pushed out, both on the physical wellness, fitness, and of course the other mental wellness aspect.
Yeah, so technology is at the heart of what we do in PureGym. Just from the very beginning of the members' journey, we have 100% online joining. We don't have reception desks. You can't come in and join in the club. And that works well because most of our members are under the age of 30 and they live their lives through their phones. So therefore, joining a gym on a phone is second nature to them. And I think that allows us to be really flexible in the way that we run our gyms, in the way that we can be very cost efficient. And that's what helps support making sure we can give low membership dues to members. But we have a 50-strong development team, and we look to develop as much as we can internally. And to lead in those markets. So a good example of that is our app. 2 years ago, we chose to bring our app in-house and to develop it through our team, because this allowed us to control the roadmap, and it also allows us to deliver services and functions that members really value. And what has proved to be key in times like this is the agility of our in-house team in developing that. So, for instance, I heard this morning, Ross, on your digital seminar, somebody saying, wouldn't it be great if we could have something that told us how busy gyms were? When we come out of this, clearly we are going to have maximum occupancies in gyms to allow for social distancing. We already have that in our app. So, and it's something that our members really value because they can adjust their behavior dependent on how many people in the gym at the time. If they see that it's busy, then they might decide to come an hour earlier or an hour later. And as we move towards only allowing a certain number of people in gyms, this will really help them manage their sort of day and when they want to come to fitness, and allow them to be comfortable in doing that. We've only been able to do that because we had the team in-house to sort of develop that quickly. But I think on the flip side, it allows us to engage with our members at a time that's convenient from them. They may want to come to the gym to work out, but they may decide they want to work out from home. And certainly a big question mark when we come out of this is, how much of fitness will move to an online environment? In my view, I think operators have to have both, and you have to have a seamless journey between both as well. And that's why we've sort of taken digital fitness, both in our physical environment and in our home environment, pretty seriously, and put some pretty significant investment behind it.
Have you had any strange, maybe interesting reflection points on how your customers and members have used the online fitness and online wellness in the past few weeks? Has there been anything that's perhaps jumped out and said, oh, actually, we thought this would be popular, but perhaps it's not as popular or more popular than you thought?
Well, sort of taking a step back, Ross, when this happened, I have to say, we weren't prepared on our in-home environment classes and workouts, because most of it is geared around gym equipment. And of course, there's very few people who have leg presses or Smith machines or treadmills at home to work out with. So we very quickly had to pivot to filming home workouts and classes. What we have seen in doing that, we're now at 200 sort of home workout and classes. And what has proved to be pretty popular are the well-being and mindfulness classes. So I can't say that I've seen something or that we've presented something to people at home where they've gone, that's a bit strange. But we have seen a shift to classes where people are sort of in quiet time rather than something like a HIIT, which is still popular, but there has been a better spread, I think, across sort of mindfulness as well as physical sort of energetic classes.
Okay, thanks, Francine. For all those that are viewing, thank you very much for staying the course. If you want to post any questions up here, we'll try and answer those in the next couple of minutes. I've got a couple of questions just now. I will ask Francine, and then we'll try and pick some questions out from the audience. Francine, you've obviously grown organically and inorganically now with the acquisition. And I suppose you're stepping out further now with a franchise offering, which is quite exciting. What was the thought process in building the franchise opportunity? What have you included in that opportunity, and how have you modeled it in the back end? Love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so look, before this happened, we had a very clear path in the UK to reaching 500 gyms. We had entered Europe, which has been sort of on the international growth plan for a while. But we've seen many other areas across the world that are underserved by good quality, low cost fitness with no contract models. And these tend to be in areas where we have no experience. We may know the environment a bit, but we don't know the infrastructure. We don't have people on the ground there, and therefore they present sort of a higher risk expansion opportunity for us. So that's one element of it. The second element is we think that we have a reasonably successful model that we can transport into other areas in the world and that will work in those areas. And so combining those two things together led us to creating a franchise offering, which we are sort of testing. We have sort of agreed our first couple of franchises, but it allows somebody in a country such as India, China, Japan, to take a proven model that is supported by technology and to develop that in their country. Anyone can build a gym, really. Wherever you go around the world, the physical proposition to some extent is similar, maybe different wall covering, maybe different type of equipment, but it's all the bits that you overlay on top that really sort of move you up a level in terms of success. And that's sort of the technology-led operating model, the ability to manage and optimize revenue and yields, which obviously give a stronger return on capital and higher margin ratios. So we believe we can support businesses in doing that. And the way we set up our franchise model is that we would like to work with master franchises rather than individuals, because we're not set up to deal with sort of individual franchises. And we're looking for sort of strong partners across a range of sectors. It could be you already have a very successful premium offering, and the low-cost market is starting to emerge and something that you would like to get into. Or it may be you're in a completely different industry, such as hotels or leisure, and you have experience of franchising in those markets, and you want to diversify. I mean, interestingly, diversification at the moment is something that a number of businesses are looking at to build resilience into their models going forward. And one might say having a no contract gym business is not the best thing to have right now. But we do believe the market will come back and come back even stronger for that low cost offering. So partners who are well capitalized, who have good real estate experience, are people we would love to have conversations with.
Thanks. I think 2018, if we were to reflect on from an Asia standpoint, we would have probably said it was the year of the boutiques in Asia. I think 2019, we thought was the year of the big box in terms of fitness, and they were fighting back. And we predicted that 2020 was going to be the year for the franchise in Asia. There was so many coming into the region. And of course, it'll be interesting to see how their plans have evolved, started, or if they're going to aggressively push in after the crisis. I know there's a couple of questions here. Let me just take one from George. The question is, the high quality, low cost model relies on relatively high density of members to work economically. Do you see the occupancy restrictions as a threat to the sustainability of your economics? I assume not in the long run, but how does that affect you in the short term?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question, because you're right. It does rely on high densities of members. However, what happened pre-COVID is everybody wanted to come at sort of 6 to 8 in the morning, and then maybe sort of 5 to 7 in the evening. And we've done quite a lot of modeling on this, and what's become clear is that people's behavior post-COVID will change. People will want to be comfortable in the environment that they're in, and therefore we believe that people will want to come at different times rather than peak. So if you can flatten that peak curve out and distribute those visits from early morning and sort of evening across the day, then you have plenty of capacity to be able to deal with the total visits that you received prior to COVID-19 happening. So in actual fact, there is more than sort of 20 to 30% capacity to do that if people change their behavior and start to come at different times during the day. And right now, we don't know how behavior is going to change post this. Are people going to travel at different times, stagger their workout days? And actually, it's now sort of been proved you can work from home pretty successfully. They're things that may well continue to happen afterwards, and gym capacity can deal with that as long as we can flatten that curve.
Yeah, I think we've spoken to a few operators in the same perspective. Employers will have much more flexible times for people to work. They'll have staggered shifts. They'll also have the ability to have much more flexible break times. And so gyms should have the ability to welcome in members beyond those times. A couple of other questions. Let me just kind of pull one up here from Liz Terry. Hi, Liz. Good to have you with us here. I'm sure you know Liz well, Francine. Interested to know if PureGym might consider adding a paid membership contract option with extra benefits so they have a more secure income base going forward.
So if we do already have something we call Plus, which is extra benefits for members, but it's still based on a flexible contract. We did used to have an offering where people could take a 12-month contract or a 6-month contract and obviously pay a little less for that. And regardless of how we promoted it, the majority of people still want to have that flexible contract that allows them to manage their finances in line with what's happening in their life. So, you know, we offer it. People did want it.
Let me just close by maybe a quick 10-15 second answer on what you're looking forward to the most post-COVID in terms of the business landscape, or what are you most looking forward to? What are you excited about the future landscape, Francine?
I think I'm really looking forward to allowing members to get back into gyms. We get so many messages from people saying for their mental well-being, their physical well-being, they would like to do that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the changes. There are a number of changes that are going to have to happen. And that means that I think there's going to be lots of opportunities, and there's going to be the ability to do things better for members and for colleagues, because we're rethinking how the world works right now.
Francine, thank you very much indeed for all your time and your thoughts. Real in truth and honest and insightful and authentic. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is just wrapping up just now. If you want to reach out to Francine, please do so, and she'll be able to answer any questions you have. We have half an hour left in the summit. It's for networking and for exhibitions. You can post comments, say hello, and make sure that you're having a last little bit of a connection before we wrap up. Thank you again to our speakers. Thank you again to our sponsors. We'll have the recordings to you of all the sessions on Friday morning. Stay safe, be well, and remember to smile. Thanks very much, everybody. See you later. Thank you, Francine.
Thanks, Rob.